Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is going to be the week 2 vlog of the Blackathon for this year from the 8th to the 14th. Last week I noticed when I was editing the footage that a lot of the clips I looked and sounded tired, which is probably because I was. I kept having sleep problems and one night I only slept 3 hours. And so last night I tried to recover from that by going to bed at 7:30 and getting up at 8:30, about 13 hours. Obviously I woke up as I do for a couple hours at various points during the night, but I probably got at least 9 to 10 hours of sleep, which is better than my usual 6 to 7, and maybe help me recover from that night. But I'm still really tired this morning, so I'm gonna try drinking some Diet Coke instead of water for the first couple hours I'm awake and see if that helps anything. I don't like coffee. If I put enough creamer in it, there's a point at which I like it, but at that point I'm mostly drinking the creamer. So it probably has the amount of caffeine that soda would. But as far as reading, yesterday I started A Queen of Gilded Horns, which is a sequel to A River of Royal Blood, which I really liked like 2 years ago. And I really am enjoying how easily I slip back into this world and these characters. Like, a lot of it's coming back. Not like the specific events, but the vibes are very much coming back, and I really like that. I'm really liking the characters. I'm really hoping that things go a certain way with the characters, and I really like the world building with all the Khmer, who are like people with animal characteristics. A lot of them have horns, and some of them have feathers or fur or hoofs, and a lot of them have claws, and that whole world building aspect is really cool. There's also some vampire type people who drink blood, and some fae who like have glamour abilities, and then there's human. And yeah, I'm really loving picking back up with the squad that we formed in the last book, coming through into this book. It's really fun. So it's Thursday. Last night I finished Queen of Gilded Horns, and I really liked it. I really loved the characters and how they continued on from the last book, and I really loved the conclusion. So I gave A Queen of Gilded Horns 5 stars. The premise is that there is a rule in this country where rival heirs to girl children of the previous queen have to kill each other. One of them has to kill the other in order to become the next queen, and an enchantment is put on them so that only they can kill each other. And what happens if they don't want to kill each other, along with a lot of other complications. And like, the throne was stolen from a different race of beings by humans from Khmer, who are those animal people I was talking about. And yeah, there's lots of complications. Then on my trip to the library I got A Kata Woman by Nadia Korafor, and the first 2 of these books I listened to on audiobook, and as I'm reading it, the voice of the audio narrator is coming back to me, and like, I'm hearing things in his voice, so that's cool. And this one too, I'm slipping back into really easily, the world and the characters, and I'm really excited to meet up with more of the characters. This starts off with Sunny and her teacher doing some stuff together, and I'm excited for getting back with the rest of the characters. I really love these books. Like, it's pretty much the characters that do it for me, but I also do love the world building and the magic system. It's a lot of fun. I'm only a few pages into it, but already I'm like so happy to be back in that world, so I'm really enjoying it. Okay, so it's Thursday evening and it's time to tell you about the funny little trail I went down today and where it led me. So there's a word in Akata Witch and all the Akata series called chitim, which is their kind of magical money that falls out of the sky when you learn something new. And it's spelled kind of like the word chitin, which is, I think, a material that's bug skeletons are made out of, and it's also a common fantasy game armor. And the first place that I encountered this word was in a game that I played when I was a little kid. And so it reminded me of the existence of that game. And I've been looking for a new game to play because I felt understimulated and I'm like, I need a new video game. But the problem was I couldn't remember the name of the game. So I typed into Google, game with shapers. It's just game with shapers. Came up with like the game called Shaper where you draw shapes. Blah, blah, blah. Then I did game with shapers and fire-breathing lizards, because those are some of the things you create in the game. And then, and that just gave me stuff for fire-breathing lizards. Then I put in game where you create creatures with mana, and then it gave me a game called Mana. And so I kept going, I was like, I can't remember what it was called, or any of the specific words that have to do with the game except for shaper. And I wasn't even sure about that. I was like, maybe I'm remembering wrong, maybe it was shepherds. So I finally typed in game where you play as a shaper, and first result, Geneforge. And I was like, yes, that's it. So I got Geneforge. A lot of like full-fledged video games nowadays are like $60. This one was only, I paid $20 for all 5 iterations of the game. So relatively good deal. It's an old game and apparently it's an indie game, so that's cool. I didn't know nothing about nothing back when I was a kid, and I was never able to beat this game in either Geneforge 1 or 2. But I'm hoping that much like the Fire Emblem games, it'll be easier now that I'm an adult and not a little kid who is not that great with logic and problem solving. And I've definitely gotten way farther, way faster in this game than I did when I was a kid, so that's cool. I played it for several hours this afternoon, and I listened to the audiobook of Memphis. And I've been listening to the audiobook of this, which I also happen to have a print copy from the library, for basically since the beginning of the month, while I drive and stuff like that. But this is the first time I sat down for like hours at a time and listened to it. And it is an intergenerational story of Black women who live in Memphis, and it has a lot of trauma in it, a lot of the bad things that happened to these 3 generations of women in Memphis. Mostly racism and sexism issues. There's violence against them and their families. There's a lot of scary things that have almost violence, and a lot of sad things. There were also some really sweet moments. Really sweet moments with the grandmother, and she was also a badass. They're all badasses. And I really love the sisterhood between who are the youngest generation and then their mother and aunt. I really love their relationship and how the aunt is great with the nieces. And I really love the stories of the neighborhood and how the neighborhood bands together and takes care of each other. Those are really sweet. So yeah, there's a lot of terrible things and a lot of also really sweet and wonderful, loving things going on in this story. And I ended up giving Memphis 4 stars. But I'm glad I read it as an audiobook, because I don't think I would have had the gumption to read all those terrible things in print format. I just connect more deeply to the characters usually in print format. So yeah, it's a bit more of a like barrier between me and what's happening to the characters when I listen to it in audio. It's the morning of the 10th, and I was really excited to get up this morning, and it was because I want to play my new video game. I do have another audiobook slated that is Rise, and I'll put up the cover, by a South African soccer player. So I might listen to that, but I also have some booktube to catch up on, so I'll probably start by listening to booktube and then move on to an audiobook, depending on how long I take playing my game. Arwen is very good at finding the softest textures to lay on. Yes, I'm talking about you. Oh, you're so cute. This is my robe-like thing. Yeah, I bother you. I bother you. That's the softest thing. And I left it on my bed, so she's curled up in it. And it's time for bed. Arwen. I guess I'll just curl up in this half of the twin bed. It'll be fine. So it's the 11th and I have 2 updates. One, I played a lot of Gene Forge yesterday and I listened to a lot of Rise by Sia Khaleesi. Turns out he's a rugby player, not a soccer player. But they still have goals and goalies. I don't know anything about rugby. I know a little bit more about it now. So this is a memoir, and so it went through his childhood, and he was born right when apartheid was overruled or gotten rid of legally in South Africa, and he lived in a sort of city made up of tents and tin houses. I think he lived in a tin house with his grandmother, and he worked little, like, selling things to people jobs as like an 8 to 9-year-old to try to help bring money in, because jobs are really scarce for the adults, for everybody. His dad worked in a city far away to send money back, and his grandma also worked, but then she lost her job, and what living in poverty was like, and how they didn't have enough to eat. And then he leads that into how rugby really helped him mentally and physically, and how like free school lunches were essential. And then so it follows him as he was a young kid and then a teenager playing for teams, and how he got scouted and eventually got into a big team. And now we're following him playing against like Argentina and Japan, and him getting married and having problems with alcoholism, and figuring out that he needed to do something about that. There are a fair amount of details about the rugby, so if you do like rugby, I think it would be extra interesting. But it's also a lot just about life. Then I also read some of Akata Woman, and I am loving this so much. As I said, I slipped right back into this really easily, and we've now met back up with the squad, which is Orlu, Sasha, and Chi-Chi. And Sasha and Chi-Chi were really annoying in the second book, but they're acting much less annoying in this book. And I love Orlu so much. He's so adorable. And he reminds me a lot of the love interest in my unwritten book. Which is like all the childhood things that I found attractive are piled into that character, so he's kind of like that. So that's really cool, and I really like his and Sunny's relationship, and I really like her relationship with her mentor, as I said. And yeah, we're off on a quest. So today I decided to dye my hair, and at the point where I haven't bleached it yet, I'm like, oh no, I'm ruining my beautiful brown hair, because I really like the brown color. But then when I rinse out the bleach, I'm like, oh, that's a really pretty gold color. So I do like it both ways, but I was separating this out to help it dry, and I can feel the difference in texture, that it feels damaged. But yeah, I'm gonna turn it red now once this is fully dry, even though I like the blonde color because it's a lot more interesting than just a blonde streak to have a red streak. So this is the final color. I really like it. I think it'll still look pretty when it's all mixed in with the other hair. It's, you know, fairly close to each other, so it should stay relatively together, but I won't be able to get this together again. So I want to show you how concentrated the color is. I really like it. So it's Sunday, and I didn't get much reading done yesterday, except for a fair amount of audiobook reading, so I'm like only have an hour and a half left of Rise to read. We're to the point where he is at the World Cup that I assume they're going to win, because otherwise he wouldn't be as famous as he is to write a book about it. But I think I'll wait till I finished it to do another full update on that. We're going to Spokane today, again, but today we get to actually start working on renovating the house to make it into a duplex, so both my aunt and my brother can live there at the same time. Right now it's just my brother, because we got the permits finished a week or two ago, so now we can actually start doing things, so I'm really excited about that.
Are you coming on the trip, Pippin? Yeah, you're gonna come with me. Yeah, I'll just close you up in there and take you with me. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm listening to the second to last hour of Rise. And back at the beginning, he talked about how in his community, when he was growing up, when he was a kid, people would go to each other's houses to ask for food because he was hungry all the time. And most people didn't have very much. They were all in the same situation, but they gave him what little they had when they had any. And the whole community was all about helping each other. When someone had a job, they would spread around the money that they got from it so that most people could be fed. And what I got emotional about, first of all, was in the second to last hour, he's talking about what he did with the fame that he got after he won the World Cup. And one of the things is he got involved in COVID-19 relief, and so part of that was going to the community that he grew up in. And the same people were still there who were there when he was a kid, and he now had the resources to give back to them, and a lot of them remembered him from when he was a kid. And also the little rugby teams who played in open dirt lots, who didn't have many uniforms or kit or anything like that. When he was a kid, he would take off his sweaty jersey and give it to the next kid for them to play. And he said that when he made it big, he would make sure that all the kids in his town, and as far as he could reach, would have all their own uniforms and kit to play, and he was able to do that too. He also did a fairly long section on he and his wife after the World Cup sat down together and talked about what they wanted to do with his fame. And the first thing before this other stuff was to address gender-based violence. He talked about that a little bit earlier on. One of his teammates wore a wristband that was in honor of a woman who had been essayed and killed in South Africa, and there were protests going on at the time to stop that from happening in the future, to put an end to gender-based violence. And he talked about that a little bit before the World Cup portion of the book, and then after that he talked quite a bit about the basics of feminism and the basics of ending gender-based violence, and how you have to teach, the way that you achieve that is that you teach your kids, all the kids, that the genders are equal. It has been found that in countries where it is generally accepted that men and women are equal, there's less gender-based violence. New Zealand, I think, is one of those countries. But yeah, he talked about quite a bit of that stuff, and it was all like basic feminist tenets, but it's the kind of thing that has to come out of a man's mouth or other men will listen to it. But I didn't start crying until the giving back to his community part got involved.
Here's where I'm sitting. Did you know I brought this up for me? I'm not going to pet you yet, because, okay, I can make do with a little less.
There's your little face. There's your little face. You're pretty hot stuff, aren't you? How'd you get up there? How'd you do it?
Editing Annalise, I just figured out that I never actually wrapped up my review of Rise. Basically, it was really, really good. I didn't expect to become a stan for a rugby player, but yeah, good book. Lots of stuff about rugby that, and like play-by-plays that weren't particularly interesting to me, but all the other stuff was really great, and I think I'd give it 5 stars. So it's Wednesday, which is the day after I meant to end this vlog, but I spent a lot of Monday and Tuesday, when I didn't have talk to camera parts of the vlogs, being really tired and a little sickly feeling, because the beds are different enough up in Spokane that I tend not to sleep very well. We did make some progress. We did some deconstruction. We also put up a false wall that I didn't show you, which basically is just putting up the 2x4s in a place that doesn't have a thick enough wall that's like made of concrete or something, so that there's place for the plumbers and electrician to put in the tubes and wires. Anyway, it also took me to today to finish Akata Woman, which I absolutely loved. This goes on another really interesting adventure based on Nigerian folklore and mythology. It was so interesting. I love the adventure part of it, like all the world building and the different places they travel to, because this is a traveling quest. I think the second book was also a traveling quest. There was a really cool otherworldly place that the author made as sort of a resting place on the journey, and that was probably my favorite place. And I really enjoyed the squad in this one, and Sunny's really cool. Sunny learns a lot more about herself in this one, and it talks a little bit about the Nigerian Civil War. And yeah, I just absolutely loved spending more time with these characters and getting to spend it in these really interesting worlds that the author creates. So I gave Akata Woman 5 stars. And that concludes my vlog for this week. I hope you're having a lovely February, and if you would like to leave an emoji, how about something red? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!